I've seen this with companies double or triple profit. They end up hiring farmers for roles that require hunters, or they hire hunters for roles that require closers. My goal with this is to feed you with not just the what to do, but concretely how to do the what.
Maui Mastermind presents the Business Coach Podcast, answering your questions and providing real actionable insights for building a better, stronger, more profitable business without sacrificing your time, life, or freedom anymore.
Welcome to another episode of the Business Coach Podcast. In this episode, we're going to talk about 5 different ways to scale up your sales capacity. I want to start off with a story. So I was talking with a client, a coaching client of ours, a number of months ago. And as I was talking with her, one of the challenges she was finding was, David, we could take on more business. Our salespeople are maxed out. They're seeing the number of leads that they can see. They're selling what they can sell. And I feel stuck. Other than trying to hire more people, that's about the only way I can really think about scaling this up. And I asked her a series of questions. We went back and forth. And at the end of the conversation, what she realized was scaling up her sales force was one of 5 different ways to scale her sales capacity. And it may or may not have been the best one. The challenge is scaling up a sales force is time intensive, it's expensive, and it's fraught with risk. Depending what's going on in your business, the other 4 mechanisms to scale up your sales capacity are without the same cost structures. They have advantages to them. So in this episode of the Business Coach, I want to share with you how you can approach scaling your sales capacity from new and fresh perspectives so that you can grow sales, increase profitability, and make your business more valuable, more successful. So starting off, let's talk about scaling other ways, your capacity. So if you think about your business, this is a really important message for you. If you're dealing in a business where you have more leads than your sales team can effectively and efficiently process through. If that is the case, let's go through some ideas there. So first of all, we're going to talk about lead management. So the first strategy to scale up sales capacity is to do better with your lead management. Now, lead management can be things from organization of your CRM, of your database of leads, so that your follow-up is better. It could be the use of some sales automation. And it can also be about lead scoring and lead distribution. So let's start with this. Imagine you have a company and you're generating 500 leads per month. If that number in your world is too high or too low, scale up or scale down the numbers. We'll choose 500. And of those 500, 400 of them are not qualified or the looky-loos, but 100 of those leads are in fact leads that once you process through them should get a sales appointment of some sort, whether you're selling over the telephone, selling over a video conference, selling in person in your office, showroom, or place of business, selling in person in the field or at somebody else's place of business, or some combination thereof. So you've got those 100 leads now. So the first thing you did is you qualified through. With lead management, we have to ask, are we doing lead scoring? Those 100 leads that are coming through are not created equal. In fact, it's probably very realistic that 10, 20, 30% of those leads are really, really highly qualified. They're your best buyer profile. And of the rest of them, you might find that another 20 to 50% are qualified, but they're marginally qualified. So let's say you've got 3 salespeople in your sales force. They're all maxed out. It's unusual, and this is spoken having worked with and coached several thousand companies. It's quite unusual that all 3 of these salespeople are going to be equally skilled, equally consistent in their closing rates. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take a look at what are their closing rates, but the closing rates by themselves are not enough. If I've got 3 different salespeople, I've got Jim, Janice, and Paul. Jim might have a 50% close rate where Janice and Paul have 20 to 30% respectively. You'd say, oh, Jim's my best salesperson. But wait, if Jim sells an average unit of sale of $3,000 per sale and Janice and Paul sell at $5,000 to $10,000 per unit of sale, then Jim might not be your best salesperson and probably mathematically isn't. You might also find that when you look at the numbers more granularly, that Jim is fantastic with referral leads. One of the home improvement companies we work with had one of their main salespeople who was great with repeat and referral business, but he was horrible with leads that came in through their advertising, their direct mail, or other mechanisms, their website. So if that's the case, I'm going to use my lead management with who gets what leads or type of leads to be really smart. The basic place to start from, if I were your business coach, that we would start from is we would look at two numbers. We would look at conversion rate of your 3 salespeople, and we would then also look at the average dollars sold for each lead that you gave to them. So if I gave to Jim 100 leads over the course of a quarter, and Jim sold an average of, we'll make up a number here, $2,800 per lead on average. Janice, I gave her 100 leads, and on average, every lead I gave to Janice, she sold for $4,000. She generated a revenue per lead. Effectively, Janice is twice as good of a salesperson in terms of her effectiveness and efficiency of turning leads into dollars of revenue. So what that means is if Janice has extra capacity, it would be crazy. It would be criminal for me to leave her capacity unused and fill up Jim. And I see this with companies that say, oh, I've got this month I've got 100 leads, so I'll give, 33 of them to Jim, 33 of them to Janice, and 33 of them to Paul. But if Janice could handle 40 or 50 leads and she's selling for twice as much per lead given, I should fill her all the way up and then give to Paul and to Jim respectively. So lead management is the one very important way of increasing sales capacity. Well, David, how does that increase sales capacity? Because what it does is it increases the amount of sales happening from the same group of salespeople, which is effectively increasing sales capacity. So lead management could be about who is most effective at turning a lead into revenue. Part of that's closing rate, but an easier number is to look at for every lead that you give to them, what do they turn that into in terms of revenue? Now, if you have 2, 3, 4 main sources of leads, and you're willing to be a bit more granular, looking at the average dollars sold per lead that you give them by the breakdown of that marketing lead source is a very good advanced coaching tip that I would really encourage you to do. It will make a real difference. I've seen this with companies double or triple profit over the course of 12 to 24 months just from applying this one thing without any more sales hires, by the way. That's the beauty of this. This doesn't require any more sales hires. Now, lead management also does about how you organize your leads and the lead follow-up. A lot of companies, when we initially start coaching them, they don't really have a good process wherein they organize leads and follow up in an organized fashion. So, for example, one of the medical groups that we work with, they were dealing with patients that just stopped coming to see them in their world. And so they started a reactivation campaign. Initially, it was really a pain for them to go into their ERM, their electronic medical records, EMR system, and pull out the people and make phone calls. Hey, Mrs. Johnson, Dr. Smith wanted me to reach out to you and do the reactivation script because they didn't have it really well done. Well, within about 3 or 4 months of doing this campaign that we coached them through, they had it dialed in. It was systematized about how to pull the information out of their electronic medical records, their EMR system. It was systematized with the scripts of who was going to be doing calls. Their front desk staff were trained so that when they had empty moments, they would take half an hour, one of them would go and start making some of these phone calls based on their schedule for the coming next week or two. And they did this. They increased their profitability at one of their sites by 12%. They increased their profitability at the other site by close to 30% in the following 12 months, trailing 12 months after applying that simple system. So lead management is the first way of increasing sales capacity. And the beauty of it is it requires very little cost. Yes, you'll have some time. You might have some programmer or technical time, but it doesn't require a lot. It requires more thought, more strategic insight, more focus. The second way is to qualify tighter. So the second way to increase sales capacity is we take our existing salespeople, in our case right now, in our example, that's Jim, Janice, and Paul, and we get them to do better by qualifying tighter so that if they can only handle this month, for example, 20 or 30 sales appointments this month, they can only run that many leads, then we want to make sure that the leads they run are their best buyer prospects. So if I have enough to give them 25 or 50 leads each, but they only have space to handle 20, let's qualify tighter so that the 20 they get have been the best of what's there. So how can I qualify? I can qualify through the use of what I do in my advertisements, whether my ad is an Instagram ad, or my ad is a direct mail piece, or my ad is a billboard on the sign. I can use the initial ad and the follow-up email sequences that come to confirm, etc., or support that. I can use those to qualify tighter. I can also use whoever does the initial client prospect intake, whoever does the lead scheduling. I can train him or her to qualify tighter. All things being equal, if I've got more leads than I can handle from a volume perspective, I'm going to qualify down somewhat so I make the optimal use of the current capacity that I have. All right, so that's technique number 2. Technique number 3 says, I'm going to hire more salespeople. Yes, finally, David, you get there. But notice I looked at qualification and I looked at lead management before I went to hire. The cue that tells you hiring is the right move is the one that says that your lead flow is relatively consistent, such that you're not going to have wild fluctuations where this month you have 100 leads, the next month you have 500 leads, the next month you have 12 leads. If you have some consistency there, then hiring and scaling up sales-wise. Now, my best 3 points of advice, if you are my client, number 1, be very clear on what type of salesperson you need to hire. Look at who's been the most successful salesperson that you have that you need to hire to model off of. Do you need a farmer? Do you need a hunter? Do you need a closer? Do you need a technical salesperson? Be very clear on the type of salesperson you need, because that right there is probably half the mistakes I see of hiring salespeople. I watch clients before they get going with the program. They just don't take the time to think about the type, who they need for that sales role to be successful. And they end up hiring farmers for roles that require hunters, or they hire hunters for roles that require closers, or they hire closers for roles that require hunters. You say, well, David, what does that mean? Well, a farmer is someone who's not going to go prospect. They're going to be really good at taking existing relationships, nurturing, stepping them along to buy more, to refer more, to retain longer. That's a typical account manager role. Whereas you have a hunter, that's someone who's going to be very willing to prospect, to prospect, to prospect. The downside is that hunters tend not to be very good on their sales follow through to grow accounts that are already there. They tend to make the sale, move on to the next. And then closers, which would be another type of sales professional, they tend to be really good at the closing stages, but they're almost never going to be good at prospecting. They're rarely going to be comfortable doing prospecting activities, asking for referrals, etc. They're going to want to be there in that final moment. That's where they really shine. And you have other types as well. So that's 1. 2, don't hire one salesperson. Always hire in multiples. It takes probably 110 to 120% of the energy to train 2 or 3 salespeople as it does to train 1 salesperson, because I can double up or triple up on the sales training. Now you might say, well, David, what about the cost? Hiring 2 or 3 salespeople at the same time seems to cost a lot more. Yes, it does, but recognize the beauty of a sales hire is that their base portion of compensation tends to be fairly low relative to their total compensation, which means that your fixed cost for the first 30, 60, 90 days is pretty low while you're giving them a working audition. I don't tell them it's a working audition, but it is. I get to see what their performance is like, because many times salespeople, their best sales that they ever make is the getting of the job. So now how can I make this even better? Which brings me to my third coaching suggestion. If you're going to scale up by increasing your sales force, you need to be very clear. What are the sales behaviors that, if they do these behaviors well, will lead to sales success? So for example, if you have a business where there's lots of prospecting activities, You might say that the success behaviors is they've got to do 100 dials a day, 100 dials a day, 100 dials a day, 100 dials a day. Or if they play more of an account manager role, they've got to be there making and setting up, 3 customer follow-up calls every single day, set up 3 appointments each day with existing customers. For example, they need to be able to ask for and effectively generate referral leads, might be an example. These leading indicators, when we get very clear on what these success behaviors are for this specific sales role in your company, when you get that clear, what are the 2, 3, 4 behaviors you need to see? You can now make that very clear from the onboard, train them on that, and hold them accountable so that within 2 weeks, certainly within 4 weeks, within a month for sure, that they're on a week by week basis, on a day by day basis, you're managing to make sure that they're doing the success behaviors. If they're resistant to doing those behaviors that lead to success, you're going to find out that they're the wrong hire. So out of the 2 or 3 that you hired, one of those is probably going to be gone within 30 to 90 days. And that leaves the other 1 or 2 people left that now they see how serious you are about doing those success behaviors. They're going to perform better. It lets you turn a hire of a new salesperson into a 30 to 90 day working audition. A mistake I see with clients, we coach them on this all the time, is they take 6 to 12 months before they make a change on someone they hired that was a bad hire in the sales area. My comment to them is they should be able to tell within 30 to 90 days, are they going to be consistently doing the success behaviors? And within 60 days to maybe 4 months, I should be able to tell, are they going to be effective or at least minimally effective to hit the threshold that you need on those success behaviors, which lets you make good, smart choices fast. All right. Fourth, consider pricing. If you have a limited sales capacity and it's hard for you to increase the capacity, what it's saying is, hey, we have more leads than we can process through. If I've got more leads than I can process through, one way of handling the overflow is by going from, I'll make up a number, from $10,000 sale to an $11,000 or $12,000 sale. That by itself will push away some people, but because you have enough capacity, you have more leads than the capacity to deal with that, pushing away some people is okay. If I can increase my pricing, I was talking with a client who has a roofing business. I was giving him this advice here recently. He has an ambitious goal to increase his bottom line profitability by 15%. And we were looking at suggestions for increasing gross profitability, controlling cost of his overhead, etc. But what I encouraged him, I said, you didn't say this here, but one place is if you can push pricing, if your typical roof in the past would have been, $20,000 or $30,000, if you could push that roof pricing up even 10% without having your costs go up, that's a big deal. That 10% extra drops straight to the bottom line. Think about that. If I go from a $20,000 roof to selling an average of a $22,000 roof, I'm just increasing my unit of sale by 10%. But my profit margin went up hugely by doing that because, again, I have no extra fixed overhead or costs for that extra piece of sale. So look at raising pricing, which brings me to the fifth and final that I wanted to share with you in this episode of The Business Coach. And that had to do with, could you change the mechanism of sale to either be out a salesperson or to be one to many by a salesperson? So changing it to be without a salesperson means, is it possible that you can use your website to sell, for example, or a direct response advertising mechanism to sell? So let's take 2 different cases, one where you're selling a widget, one where you're selling a service. We'll make it even a tough one, like a medical service. Say, well, how in the world do you sell that, online? So the widget, how can I sell that so the person is buying that online, whether that's reordering from existing customers, so there's less pressure for you to have account management there, or a new lead comes in, how can I sell them off the website? If in the medical world, that might be that I'm selling them by getting them to schedule their medical appointment. Maybe it's a dermatology practice that, has ads going out on Facebook. Hey, you need to get your annual skin check review, right? Skin cancer kills, 12,000 people a year. Obviously, it's a lot higher than that, but you get my idea. They go to a landing page. And on that landing page, it has reasonable sales copy and it has them schedule for their initial skin check with Dr. So-and-so or with one of his staff or her staff members. It's an example of getting rid of the salesperson out of that function. And I've seen that work with client businesses exceptionally well. I'll give an example in a strange different place. One of our coaching clients runs a landscape business. And in the past, when he did selling, he would have to have him or one of his people go to a homeowner's site, look at their yard, give them an estimate. It'll be $300 a month. It'll be $195 a month. It'll be $500 a month for us to do your yard landscaping. Well, right when COVID struck, he changed his technology where he created a sales landing page such that it tied into the county records so that he could pull up the square footage of the house, the square footage of the acreage of the lot, and he was actually selling his landscaping services right there off the website without a salesperson having to be there to give the estimates and bids. It was a way to take the salesperson out of the equation, to freeze that there. Tools for that can be great sales copy, great sales videos, really good offers that are being made, strong risk reversal on those offers, credibility devices like Better Business Bureau or as seen on or featured in such of these prestigious publications, etc. Now, what about going one to a group versus one to one? Depends on the business. So earlier today, I was working with one of our clients who runs a coaching service for home cleaning businesses. And I was giving her some input with an audio message. She's a fantastic person, really, really nice. Her name is Liz. And so one of the comments I gave to Liz was something along the lines for, using as a sales opportunity, one to many through the use of a webinar. And I gave her input about that. In the past, she might have sold one person to one person, and that was effective. But what if she could get 10 people or 100 people on a webinar and sell to all of them at the same time? We're leveraging our sales capacity. So there you have 5 different ways of leveraging or increasing or scaling your sales capacity. The first of them, again, just as a reminder, was using lead management, lead scoring, lead organization for that. Number 2 was increasing the qualifying tighter, to ratchet in qualification so that each appointment a salesperson has is with an incrementally more qualified prospect. The third was to hire more salespeople. The fourth was for you to raise pricing, to use pricing as that mechanism, that lever to increase sales capacity. Remember, sales capacity means selling more dollars with the same or more people. That's increasing sales capacity. And the final one was, how could you change the way that you're selling to take a salesperson out or to leverage that salesperson? I'll give you one more as a 6, which is to look for how could you leverage a sales admin person. So let's say you've got your 3 salespeople, and on average, they're working through 33 leads per month is what each of them can handle. Well, if I hire a sales admin that helps them with paperwork, organizing themselves, follow up to get contracts back from customers, etc., and that one admin could easily support 3 different salespeople, that $50,000, $60,000 a year admin probably gives me an extra 50% sales capacity for each of those salespeople, because it probably saves them half their time. Let's say it only gives you the equivalent of saving a third of each of these persons' time. Think about that. For a $50,000 to $60,000 hire, you've increased your sales capacity by 1 full salesperson without having to go back and retrain, without having to manage that salesperson. And generally speaking, your sales hire is going to be 2, 3, 4, 5 times more expensive than that sales admin. So that's another one to think about. All right. I want to say thank you for joining me today on The Business Coach. My goal from all of these is this. I always had a pet peeve, which was I've been to probably well over 100 different business workshops myself, attending over the last 30 years. Probably that number is close to 250. I've read several thousand books, and I've always gravitated to those people who tell me not just what to do. That drives me crazy. You need to do X, but they don't give you concrete information about how to do the what to do. So, I think you've probably seen from the style of the podcast that my goal with this is to feed you with not just the what to do, but concretely how to do the what. And, probably a little bit more technical than some people are appreciative of. But look, I look at this as you're a business owner who wants to thrive and succeed. And when I look at this, I think of if you are my coaching client, even though I don't directly coach clients anymore, very limited basis. Now it's our coaching staff. But if you are a coaching client, how would I share with you about a specific valuable topic, whether it's an opportunity to seize or a challenge to deal with? And my goal is to give you concrete takeaways so that when you leave this episode, that there are 2 or 3 ideas that you can take away and you go, you know what? That was worth $50,000, $100,000 or more for me for listening and taking really good notes, and then taking my 1, 2, or 3 great ideas from that and putting them into action to make my business more profitable, more successful, more durable, more scalable. I wish you every success applying those best ideas. Thanks for joining me today.